Many people try to change their lives solely through the force of action, believing that physical effort alone can fix everything. But true transformation begins in the emotional field that supports every thought. Itzhak Bentov understood this principle deeply while studying the mechanics of consciousness. He saw that your inner state organizes perception, guides choices, and ultimately shapes your path with far greater precision than any isolated action ever could. This is why so many people work incredibly hard and still remain stuck in the same patterns. The claim that repeating a single sentence 100 times can shift your reality within 3 hours sounds strange at first, but that reaction only comes from not understanding how the neural field responds to emotion. Emotion-charged repetition carves internal pathways that reprogram belief. Reprogrammed beliefs change decisions, reactions, and the opportunities that show up in daily life. The outer world naturally follows this inner vibrational reorganization, no forced effort required. Feeling trapped in repeating cycles isn't caused by mysterious external forces. It's the result of internal patterns that remain active because they've never been emotionally restructured. This video explains that mechanism and shows how quickly the mind readjusts when it receives a clear, coherent signal loaded with genuine feeling. The 7 nights technique is a simple, direct, and extremely powerful way to activate that shift. Anyone who stays until the end will understand why 3 hours can be enough to start a completely new rhythm in your life. Itzhak Bentov's view of consciousness has always stood out for combining simplicity and depth in the same breath. He saw the mind as a dynamic, vibratory field that is highly responsive to the inner frequencies each person sustains. This perspective reveals that human consciousness doesn't just interpret the world, it actively participates in creating what we experience, shaping reality through emotional and mental patterns that repeat over time. Bentov treated this process as completely natural, the result of a sophisticated mechanism most people never explore with real curiosity. His model rests on the idea that the mind operates within a neural field that extends beyond the physical body. This field connects thoughts, emotional states, memories, and intentions into a kind of vibrational signature that continuously interacts with the subtle structure of the universe. Whatever remains alive inside gains strength and tends to show up in external events. The key point is that repeated inner patterns create enough coherence to reorganize circumstances, open new paths, and attract experiences that match a person's intimate state. Bentov approached all of this with scientific rigor while keeping the sensitivity of a mystic. He noted that brain activity generates frequencies that extend outside the head and form stable waves capable of interacting with the environment. Emotions directly affect those waves. Calm emotions produce harmonious patterns, while heavy emotions create irregularities that lead to perceptual and behavioral instability. That instability shows up as disconnected choices, inner resistance, and external situations that feel conflictual. The fascinating part is that Bentov saw everything as one single circuit. The neural field receives stimuli from the environment, translates them, emits new frequencies, and then influences the environment again. This constant feedback loop creates your personal experience of reality. What you believe, what you feel, and what you repeat in your mind acts as the code that steers the entire circuit. Old codes produce old results. Renewed codes open new possibilities. Consciousness functions as a modulator that quietly adjusts your path most of the time without you even noticing. Bentov's work helps explain why some people feel they're moving in endless loop. Recurring thoughts, old emotional patterns, and unintegrated memories keep feeding the neural field the same frequencies, and those frequencies sustain similar experiences. Yet nothing stops anyone from changing the mechanism. Change begins the moment a person recognizes the power of their own inner state and starts using that power with clarity, intention, and consistency. The neural field responds almost instantly to any genuine shift, especially when the shift comes from stable emotional conviction. That response makes it possible to understand, on an even deeper level, how the mind works as a continuous projector, steering life toward contexts that mirror whatever content remains active inside. This realization naturally leads to the next stage, seeing the mind not just as a receiver, but as the great projector that organizes the entire structure of your experience. The understanding of the neural field we've covered opens the door to an even deeper perspective. Bentov's view lets us see that the mind doesn't merely interpret experience. It actively directs the path by projecting inner content onto the fabric of reality. This projection is so subtle that most people call it coincidence, never noticing that life is simply responding to what they keep alive inside. Jacob Grinberg complemented this idea by describing the mind as a projector that never stops running. Whatever appears in the external world corresponds to the inner movie fed by recurring thoughts, persistent emotions, and mental images repeated with intensity. Anything that stays active in the neural field gets amplified and returned in the form of events, relationships, or behavioral patterns. People think they're reacting to the world when they're actually reacting to the reflection of their own inner content. The process works like a self-reinforcing circuit. A repeated thought creates a constant vibration in the neural field. That vibration shapes perception, perception shapes decisions, decisions create circumstances, circumstances feed the original thought again. With every loop, the inner movie becomes sharper and more defined until the person believes that movie is the only possible way to live. This dynamic explains why certain patterns feel so resistant to change. It's not some external force blocking the way. It's a set of inner frequencies that keep projecting the same storyline. Grinberg's point was that the key isn't fighting the world. It's changing the inner content that feeds the projector. When the inner structure changes, the entire circuit spontaneously reorganizes. That change becomes possible the moment someone recognizes the fluidity of their own consciousness. The mind is plastic. It can create new thought pathways that generate new emotions and, therefore, new experiences. Every transition always starts inside. An emotion cultivated with intention has enough power to overwrite old patterns and open doors that previously seemed impossible. The mind responds with remarkable flexibility to any authentic reorganization of what it holds as truth. Emotions play the central role here. Emotional vibration gives depth to thought. A thought by itself has little power to shift the neural field. The same thought soaked in emotion creates vibrational density and strengthens the emitted signal. That density redirects the inner projector toward new images and new stories. Consciousness then takes on a tone that's coherent with whatever the person chooses to nourish. Grinberg noted that mental projection doesn't only reflect what we consciously want, it mirrors with perfect accuracy whatever we repeat most often, even if we don't want to admit we're repeating it. Repeated fear projects fearful scenarios. Repeated insecurity projects situations that confirm insecurity. Repeated confidence projects opportunities that build even more confidence. The projector doesn't judge, it simply broadcasts. The neural field doesn't read hidden intentions. It responds to whatever vibrates most intensely and consistently. This understanding leads to one essential truth. Every person carries the ability to edit their own movie and redirect their trajectory. Inner transformation reorganizes the outer projection without unnecessary physical struggle, just with vibrational coherence. This principle sets the stage for grasping the role of emotional conviction, which acts as a powerful accelerator in the mechanism and opens the door to even deeper levels of change. Realizing that the mind works as a projector brings us to an even deeper observation. The force that determines the nature of the projection isn't the thought alone, but the emotional state that accompanies it. Itzhak Bentov placed great importance on this while exploring how consciousness interacts with subtler frequencies. He saw emotions as modulators that either amplify or weaken any intention placed in the inner field. Emotional intensity acts as a kind of vibrational fuel capable of turning a simple thought into a solid pattern inside the neural field. This principle becomes crystal clear when we bring in Neville Goddard's teachings. Goddard said the outer reality always mirrors the predominant inner state. For him, real power doesn't come from repeated physical effort. It comes from the ability to sustain an emotional conviction strong enough to reorganize the subconscious. The force that shapes your path doesn't come from forced action. It comes from the intimate feeling that the desire is already fulfilled. That feeling isn't vague daydreaming. It's a coherent inner state the neural field accepts as truth and begins broadcasting as the dominant frequency. Bentov examined the same process from a more physiological angle. He observed that deep emotions reorganize the brain's electrical activity and alter the vibration emitted by the entire body. From that adjustment, the neural field restructures itself, creating new patterns that start guiding perceptions and choices. The reorganization isn't random. It follows the rhythm of the person's inner state. Stable emotions create stable patterns. Fragmented emotions create fragmented projections. This reveals something crucial. Emotional conviction is not an act of force. It's an act of alignment. Often the conscious mind says, "I want this," while the emotional body says, "I doubt it." The neural field responds to whichever signal is stronger, not to what's merely spoken aloud. The outer projection organizes itself around the most alive emotion, not around mental statements. That mismatch is why so many people say they want change yet keep experiencing the same scenarios. Emotional conviction creates internal coherence. It unifies thought, feeling, and expectation in the same direction. That unity produces vibrational stability, allowing the neural field to hold a consistent pattern long enough for new experiences to form. Bentov described it as a gradual inner restructuring. Goddard called the same thing the state of consciousness that determines everything that manifests. Different language, same mechanism. The beautiful part is that emotional conviction doesn't have to be loud, it has to be real. A genuine feeling of calm has more impact than forced enthusiasm. True emotional coherence creates a stable field, and that field attracts circumstances that match its vibration. The subconscious reads that state as a clear, unambiguous command. This clarity explains why inner shifts can produce outer transformations without proportional physical struggle. The vibrational reorganization happens first, and the environment simply adjusts to the new configuration. Emotional conviction works like a magnet that reshapes the neural field, preparing the mind to receive and sustain a brand new reality. The depth of this understanding grows even further when we see how emotional repetition affects neuroplasticity, reinforcing inner patterns and building mental pathways strong enough to hold that conviction with unshakable firmness. The emotional conviction that supports inner change grows stronger through a process known and studied across many disciplines: repetition charged with emotion. Bentov observed that the mind responds profoundly to patterns repeated with intensity because repetition carves ever deeper grooves in brain structure. Neuroplasticity turns those grooves into the brain's preferred routes, making new inner states easier to maintain while old patterns that no longer serve the person gradually weaken. The key lies in how the repetition is done. Repeating without emotion has limited impact. The mind doesn't anchor information just through frequency, it anchors through emotional depth. A mechanically repeated sentence takes no root in the neural field because the brain registers it as superficial. The same sentence repeated with genuine feeling activates deeper regions, linking thought, sensation, and intention into a single vibration. That union creates stronger, longer-lasting imprints. Goddard reinforced this by saying the subconscious doesn't respond to what is said, it responds to what is felt. Emotion is its native language. The subconscious doesn't think logically or argue with itself. It reacts to the vibrational tone behind every statement. If the words say prosperity but the heart vibrates scarcity, the inner field records scarcity. If the words say confidence but the body vibrates insecurity, the projection will keep reflecting insecurity. On the other hand, a simple affirmation felt with truth transforms the neural field with astonishing power. Emotion-charged repetition is a reprogramming practice. Every time a person holds a feeling-soaked thought, the brain rewires connections and strengthens the new pattern. The process doesn't require physical effort, it requires vibrational sincerity. The mind begins treating the new pattern as familiar until, one day, it feels completely natural. That naturalness is the sign that the neural field has fully assimilated the information and now broadcasts it spontaneously. This mechanism also explains why deeply felt imagined experiences produce brain and body responses almost identical to real events. The body reacts to whatever is felt intensely, regardless of whether the feeling comes from out there or from vivid inner imagery. An inner image soaked in emotion activates the same neurological and biochemical pathways, reinforcing the desired pattern. That gradual reinforcement creates coherence between the inner experience and the vibration the person emits. Emotion-charged repetition has another powerful side effect. It shrinks the space occupied by old belief. The brain cannot sustain two opposing patterns with equal intensity for long. As the new pattern grows stronger, the old one fades, losing energy and influence. This replacement doesn't happen through confrontation. It happens through resignification. The brain always prioritizes whatever carries the greatest emotional charge and the highest repetition. Limiting patterns become fragile while new patterns stabilize. This principle gives us a rock-solid foundation for understanding how deep beliefs can be transformed through consistent practice. Emotional repetition isn't just a mental exercise. It's a way to reorganize your entire vibratory field so the mind can sustain states that once felt out of reach. This sets the stage for understanding how limiting beliefs are formed in the first place and how they can be replaced with inner codes that support a truly fulfilling life. Emotional repetition opens the door to something essential on the path of transformation, the inner code that shapes how a person sees themselves and interprets everything they live. Bentov treated this code as a malleable structure made of emotional records, affective memories, and patterns formed in early childhood. These records act like seeds that keep sprouting throughout life, producing automatic responses, silent expectations, and perceptions that color every interaction with the world. Deep beliefs aren't created in adulthood. They're planted at a time when the mind has no critical filter and absorbs information with total purity, taking it as absolute truth. That early emotional content carries forward into adult life, influencing behavior, decisions, and even the way challenges are met. The inner code becomes an invisible foundation that organizes thoughts and emotions without conscious awareness. The good news is that this code is not permanent. Bentov saw the mind as a plastic organism in constant motion, always ready to reorganize itself based on new emotional experiences. Goddard echoed this by saying no belief has authority over you unless you keep feeding it. A belief's strength depends entirely on the emotional attention it receives. Old beliefs weaken when they stop being nourished. New beliefs grow strong when they receive repetition charged with inner truth. This process doesn't require fighting the past. It simply requires the conscious choice to cultivate new references. The mind seeks coherence and will spontaneously reorganize the entire inner system to support whichever pattern receives the most emotional energy. That means every sincerely felt sentence, every clearly nourished emotion, and every steadily held intention helps rewrite the inner code. Change happens not by force, but by gradual replacement. The neural field adjusts to this rewriting. It begins emitting vibrations aligned with the new beliefs, spontaneously influencing perceptions and decisions. Opportunities that once seemed distant now feel possible. Relationships reorganize, circumstances open new directions, and choices become more coherent with a renewed inner state. None of this is random. It's the direct result of vibrational reorganization that occurs when limiting beliefs lose ground and new truths take center stage in identity. Rewriting the inner code isn't only mental, it involves body, emotion, memory, and presence. With each sincere repetition, the body responds with signals of recognition, as if acknowledging that a new path is being laid down. Emotion accompanies the movement and strengthens it. The subconscious registers the shift and begins operating from the new belief as its primary reference. This dynamic makes one thing crystal clear. No old pattern has greater power than a person's capacity to renew themselves. The neural field responds to what is felt in the present, not to what happened in the past. Therefore, any transformation becomes possible the moment someone decides to nourish a feeling that expresses the kind of life they truly want to live. That choice grows stronger with practice and remains active as long as it receives coherent emotional attention. All of this prepared ground naturally leads to a technique that concentrates every principle we've discussed, allowing inner reprogramming to happen with even greater depth and precision. Everything we've built so far finds practical application in the 7 Nights technique, which brings together neuroplasticity, emotional conviction, and vibrational reorganization of the neural field. The practice rests on something simple yet profoundly effective, repeating one affirmation with enough emotional intensity to reconfigure the subconscious. The structure of the technique delivers a steady stream of directed information to the inner field, creating a rock-solid foundation for the desired transformation. The practice is done in moments of inner silence, especially right before sleep, when the brain enters more receptive states. During that window, mental chatter softens and the subconscious takes the driver's seat. Repeating one sentence 100 times each night for 7 consecutive nights intensifies the vibrational pattern linked to the affirmation and sends the subconscious a clear, uninterrupted signal. Simple phrases like, "I am prosperous," "abundance flows to me effortlessly," work as vibrational commands that begin replacing old beliefs with new inner references. The crucial element is not the number of repetitions, but the emotional quality behind each one. The subconscious responds to the feeling that fills the word. Repetition acts like a vibrational hammer striking the same spot until the inner structure reorganizes. Emotion provides the depth of impact. Every felt repetition is a seed planted in the same soil, watered by the same effective state. Night after night, the subconscious starts treating this new information as its primary pattern instead of just another mental exercise. At this stage, many people make a quiet mistake, trying to force quick external results. That attitude creates vibrational resistance because the inner field begins broadcasting tension instead of trust. The technique requires no external effort and no obsessive monitoring. The transformation unfolds inside the neural field, not inside anxious thoughts. Trust is the stabilizing element that lets the new vibration solidify. Bentov observed that the neural field responds to emotional stability with extraordinary precision. Calm states create coherence in the frequencies the body emits. That coherence strengthens the affirmation and accelerates inner reorganization. Goddard taught the same thing in different words. True faith is accepting the wish as already fulfilled without pressuring the universe to prove it. The inner vibration already contains the seed of manifestation. The outer world simply answers what has been established inside the person. Over the 7 nights, emotional repetition builds a bridge between the current state and the desired state. Each sentence becomes an active vibration in the neural field, and the continuity creates enough depth for the subconscious to rewrite old patterns. The new belief moves to the center of the person's vibrational identity, influencing perceptions, decisions, interactions, and even unexpected opportunities that begin appearing as a direct response to the new inner state. Once reorganized, the neural field sustains the new vibration naturally, without conscious effort, and that inner stability opens powerful space for external changes to align with the new pattern. The 7 Nights technique doesn't just give you a practice, It gives you a method to place yourself back at the center of your own transformation. The doors that open from this inner reorganization lead to experiences that faithfully reflect what was sincerely nourished during those nights, bringing the entire message of this video into full integration. The decisive factor is practice. Everything becomes crystal clear when the 7 nights technique stops being just an idea and starts guiding your inner state. With every feeling-charged repetition, the subconscious records a new reference, and that reference becomes the dominant vibration. From that point forward, reality begins responding differently, opening paths that were previously invisible. Change becomes inevitable the moment a person commits to their own emotional field. Now the question that defines your future appears. Do you intend to keep living under patterns that formed without your conscious choice, or are you ready to take control of what unfolds on your path? What direction is your inner field sustaining right now? And above all, what life do you truly want to experience from this moment forward? If this content touched you, apply the method. Watch each transformation unfold and come back to share your experience. Take the chance to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this knowledge continues, and the next videos will go even deeper in the most direct way possible.